Hi, how you going? I'm Brooke Sawyer from IntellectAg and welcome to the Farm Tech Planning, Making Your Data Work For You Resource Centre. This project was delivered by Rural Edge in partnership with IntellectAg and funded by AgriFutures Australia. I hope you find these resources really valuable and supporting in relation to the content from the workshop. So in this session, I'm going to show and demonstrate to you how to create a field boundary from scratch. Now you can just use the mouse wheel to zoom into your location, or you can use the search function up in the top right hand corner to nominate a road, for example, to at least get you in the right place within Australia. So it will always bring you to a fairly generic location, and I'm just going to use this paddock here right to the north of where it's taken me. So there's a few key functions or key tools that are really helpful in Google Earth. If you double click on the little N, it will actually direct the top of your screen to be due north. The other thing is that often Google Earth will open and you're not 180 degrees bird's eye view directly over that particular field. So one of the things that you can do is to double click on this little south arrow button, and it will give you that full 180 degree view, which is really important when you're actually drawing field boundaries, because if you're at an angle you're not quite going to get them accurate. So every time you zoom in, it makes good practice to just double click on that button. Now we need to use the polygon feature by add a polygon. So as you can see, it's brought up a new add polygon window, and at this stage it's still labeled as untitled. But in my little crosshairs using the mouse, I can actually start to drop little dots and pins, and it's starting to draw my boundary for me. And so just by a little bit of practice, you will find the best way to make your little vertices as accurately as possible, and I'm not demonstrating this overly well. Now it's starting to create a polygon for us, and I find it really difficult to draw my polygon when it's actually filled. So if I go to back to the little additional window, go to Style and Color, and I want to change my area to just be outlined. It's a little easier to see where I'm going. So I'm just going to create this really quickly just by using my left mouse click to drop another point, and using the imagery in the background as a guide for my new boundary. So I'm using my mouse wheel to scroll or zoom in and out just by scrolling out with the wheel and then redirecting my cursor to where I want to then zoom in on. So I'm just going to go over to here, and I'm going to follow this boundary all the way around, and you will notice when I'm finished it that you are automatically creating a fully closed in shape. So it snaps it closed perfectly for us. Give the field a name, and then you can click OK. So if you go back afterwards and go, oh, that's a bit hunky, I maybe need to fix this up, I haven't, gone over these boundaries incredibly accurately, you can either click anywhere inside the boundary, or over in your temporary places on the left hand side of your screen, you can find that, select it by left clicking, and then right click and go to Properties. Now I know I'm in editing mode because all of my little vertices are back up on my screen and in color. Okay, now when we draw boundaries, we should always probably try and do them in a clockwise direction. So start on one side, move in a clockwise direction, dropping points along your way. But when you edit them, you need to do it in anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so I might just pick up a point here by left clicking on my mouse and drag it to its new location. Now when that point is blue or green, that is my last vertice that I'm working for. Now in an anti-clockwise direction, I can just click anywhere, and it doesn't have to be on the line, but I can click anywhere and it's going to add some more points to me. The more vertices you have on a field boundary, the more likely you are going to be to get them relatively accurate to where you want them to be. Okay. Now one other good tip is that you can see down the bottom here on this imagery date, the most recent imagery, or this imagery was taken from the 9th of May in 2011, which is pretty old. So it's always probably good practice to have a look at it and go, well, actually I know that this is no longer in existence, and you can just ignore these. So double check when the imagery was from. Now the other thing that I want to do is I want to be able to exclude some areas from within my main field boundary because they're non-cropped areas. So I've labelled this one as big paddock. Now what I want to do is I want to add a folder. Okay, so just going add, and I'm going to call it the same thing, and that's okay. And I'm going to make sure that I pick up this boundary by left clicking on it and then literally dragging and dropping it into my folder. Okay, then I'm going to add another polygon, and I'm going to draw around this area through here as my excluded area or my non-cropped area. Now this isn't always important depending on what you're planning on doing with your boundaries, but for example, if you're going to use imagery and you have an area that is non-cropped, is trees or anything like that, or even if it's a pasture field and you've got a big clump of trees, then the reflectance of this imagery is going to be very different to what's in the field, I guess, and what is actively growing or being planted. So it's always good practice to try and exclude these areas, particularly because they can interfere with the way the imagery is presented to you. So now that I've finished that, I'm going to call it Big Paddock 2, and I'm going to hit save. Now automatically it should save underneath the folder that I had created. If not, literally pick it up and drag it into the folder. Okay, now to save this and to ensure that these polygons are tied to each other, this is why I've created a folder. If I click on that folder and then right click on it and go to Save Place As, you'll notice that the file format has become a KMZ, which means that there's multiple polygons within a folder. Now I'm going to hit save on here, and when I want to share this with somebody else, if they have even the most basic platform that can import field boundaries, they will have the option to link those two boundaries together, which means that one polygon will sit inside the other polygon, giving you a perfect field boundary that excludes areas of choice. I hope you found that helpful, and be sure to check out some of our other resources. Thanks for your time.